If you were given all the advice in the world, would you still follow your gut? If you discovered your passion, would you let it guide your purpose? Bimma Williams has made it his business to not just play his game and elevate his craft, but to create space for others to do the same. I hope you all enjoy this episode of B-Scar TV with our very special guest, Bimma Williams.
RB, we good? Well, that's a good way. It's a perfect segue. Thank you for being here.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me,
V. And we're just talking about inspiration, inspiration behind, traveling in different cultures.
Yeah.
And every show, every episode, every conversation starts off with hearing about the guest's inspiration, because B-Scar TV is all about inspiring our audience, inspiring each other, shared stories, shared experiences. And curious for you right now, what's been inspiring you, whether that be your work or even lifestyle. What's been inspiring you lately?
I've been in a space lately where I think I've been inspired by the next generation, honestly, and more so about like, what can I offer them that will help them take things beyond where we've been, and especially because they have so many different tools and so much access to stuff now. And I realize like how easy it is for them to get information, but not necessarily know what that information is or what it means or how it resonates. And so like, I see a lot of young creators, and like, what I love about them is the energy and like the output. And what I'm like, I want to offer them, and what I'm inspired to offer them is, how do we create things that are different, not monolithic, right? Because right now we're in a space where I think it's rare to find confidence in doing something that you don't know if it's gonna work. You don't see it out there in other spaces. Yeah. And so there could be a little bit of like, I don't want to put this out and get clown.
Yeah.
And so I'm really in a space of like, and even for myself, it's been great for me of challenging myself to like, how can I put something out where I feel like I'm not following trend. I'm not, I'm not a TikTok dancer, so I'm not gonna blow up that way, I'm not a streamer, so I'm not gonna add value that way. And so what's the unique way for me to think about that? So that's a part of how I've been inspired. And then also I've been inspired by what's happening in culture from the standpoint of, it seems like a lot of us are getting in a space where we want more unique things in general versus just like same. So when it comes to like cars, like as no disrespect to any designers, but I just don't love the current design ethos around any modern cars, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
And I look at like cars from the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, and I'm just like, these cars were crazy.
Bold.
The lines were cleaner.
Yeah.
Everything now to me just looks so robotic, and you look so like future, whatever someone thought future was gonna look like. But I look at, just something I think everybody knows, the cars like the 86 BMW E30, right? Like those lines are just like you don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
I have a van from 93 that was like a Japanese import. Like you don't see that.
Right.
The one vehicle I will say that I love, and they're bridging the gap, is what Lexus has done with the new GX and what Toyota, same company, has done with the new Land Cruiser.
Yeah.
And they took the inspiration from the 70s. We got a lot of them in Portland. Like we got a ton of these 1970s Land Cruisers. They brought it up to modern standard. They put tech into it, so you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
That's inspiring to me. And bridging gaps is like, I just look towards those things like, I like more of that stuff.
Yeah. No, I feel that. We gotta turn this.
See, that's the wall units he was talking about.
Yeah, they have. So there used to be a little Toyota Land Cruiser shop just right up the street.
Right up the road.
Yeah, right
on Willamette. Yeah.
Hop over the cut.
Yes.
They moved. Now they're across the river. But I love those Toyota Land Cruisers, like the 70s models, just super boxy and just rugged.
Yes.
And I was partially I fell in love with those 70s, 80s, like real boxy trucks. Because it was the Bronco thing was happening. It has been happening over the past few years.
Yes.
And like Ford kind of did the same thing. They like, oh, I peep a trend. Oh, like folks are loving our vintage stuff. How do we bring that into modern day? And so that was kind of the impetus of looking into it. But I got my Chevy Blazer, whose name is Clyde. Clyde is born in 1971. It's great. And that's been just a fun project. And partially for me, I didn't want to get the Bronco. Yeah. Everybody else got the Bronco. I'm going to go Blazer.
See, that's what I mean. Like, I think the uniqueness is what, like, I'm inspired by is like, I want to see everybody's unique, like, thing.
Right.
Like, we don't need to be in the same stuff. You know, it's like going to a neighborhood and all the houses look the same. We'd always joke, we'd be like, what if you come home late one night and you're just really tired and you go in the wrong house? Because they all look the same.
Right, yeah. Those cookie cutter areas. But I think partially, man, like houses, cars, content, over the course of time, it's how can we accomplish this thing cheapest.
Yeah.
So supply chains, the cost of the goods, the factories we go through, whether it's in China and India and Bangladesh, wherever is producing the cheapest auto parts or the cheapest doors for a house or window panels, whatever.
Yeah.
Like all the distributors, we're all gonna go there because it's the cheapest way to get our product off. And I think that's also in content too.
Yeah.
And it will continue to be like, as soon as that next AI tool comes out that can chop all your raw footage into a 60-second reel, everybody's just gonna start continue to look the same. And so it's like, to your point, how can you as a creator, as an automobile manufacturer, et cetera, like do something that's unique, but also do it cost efficiently. You know what I mean?
No,
like it's
I describe it as like the battle between optimization and creativity. Right. And so we're over optimized. We're so optimized right now that like Nike went through it, right? Over the last 4 years, right? They optimized so much that they forgot about the creativity side, right? So they invested so heavy into like, we know these things work, let's invest heavy in them so that we could really like maximize the output. Like we squeezed all the juice out of the Panda Dunk, right? And then you put yourself in a position where you're like, well, oh wait, we weren't cultivating our next thing. And that's where we are, right? In the world right now is we've been so optimized, right? We've been so convenience driven that, like now Uber has a concierge service, right? So you can like, yo, I ain't got time to go see B Scar right now. So like, I'ma just send the Uber to come pick up this book, you throw it in Uber and Uber bring it to you. So like there's like, that's actually creative though. But it's like too many of the ideas are just all about how can we save more money. Not a lot of the ideas of like, how can we introduce something new, solves a problem that will also make more money.
Yeah. So when you talk about the battle of optimization and creativity, like, do you think it's a pendulum that swings back and forth? It's like you over leverage into creativity and then it's like, okay, we got something. Now how do we like produce this thing at scale? And then we'll get kind of back to this over optimization side and then, oh shit, we got to create again. And like it swing back and forth.
For it to work in a way that a healthy business works, it's a cycle. It's a typical product cycle. And usually in footwear, we'd have like 3-year product cycles. So if we introduce something new, we would introduce that to a very small audience, early adopters, innovator audience, right? And they'll either love it or hate it. If they love it, they'll wear it, they'll influence the next group, right? Which is like the early majority. And so, if you look at like the Dunk journey, that's kind of what happened when they brought it back. So like you get into this early majority and by the time it gets to late majority, you should be introducing the new thing to the early adopters. right? And so you never want to get into the space where you're exposed for being like out of date, out of touch, right? And Will Smith actually spoke about this when he thought about his career in his book. And so the way he described it was like, when he's in a thing, if he's in a show, if he's in a movie arc and they're promoting it and he's like, okay, I got to know what my next thing is. I got to be having that incubating, I got to have that working. So once I get out of this thing, I don't look like I don't have a direction for me to go.
Right.
And so he was always really clever at like figuring out his moves in that way. And that's when I think about creators, when I think about creating product, you got to think about that the same way. You have to always be innovating.
This is the innovator's dilemma. I just read that book last year. I forget who the author was, but it was a great book around just like, for companies, when you find something that's working really well, it's really easy to like just lock into that thing because it's what's producing your cash flow. It's this and that. It's like keeping the bills on, you know, it's what's flourishing in your business.
Yeah.
For Will Smith, like I'm in Bad Boys, like I'm gonna continue doing Bad Boys 1, Bad Boys 2, et cetera.
Yep.
Right? But then you actually have to start to invest in what isn't making you any money, what hasn't been done yet, what is actually a risk. Because at some point, this cash cow is gonna become obsolete.
Naturally.
It's only a matter of time. So can you take some investment away from that and put it into the next thing?
You have
and your
to.
next move.
You have to.
And it's so many businesses and even like individuals.
No, it's
right?
hard to, because you get used to the cash side. You get used to the money coming in the door. It's predictable, right? That's what like, the best thing is when you got predictable income. It's also the worst thing because it's so predictable. It's like when people get wealthy, they don't know how to be hungry, right? And so you're just ripe to be attacked, right? Like in old times, like if you were a king that was isolated in a castle, that's the most dangerous place to be, right? Because you don't know what's happening in the streets. So you don't know if somebody's plotting, you don't know what they plotting, you don't know how they're gonna attack you because you're disconnected. So you have to figure out how to do both. Kodak ran into this issue. Kodak was the biggest tech photography equipment producer of their time. And the story goes, a young executive brought them a white paper that said, digital is coming and it's gonna change our industry and we need to develop digital product. And the CEO at the time said, nah, we're Kodak. We've been here, we're gonna be here after people want film.
Right.
Dog, Kodak went bankrupt. Like Apple popped up, all these companies popped up, lapped these guys.
Yeah.
And it's because king at the top.
Crazy.
Wasn't thinking about what's happening on the ground. Thought they was impenetrable.
You see it in sports also, right? Like one example maybe is the Green Bay Packers.
Whew.
You got Aaron Rodgers, right? Quarterback, you're winning games. And at some point, A-Rod's gonna have to go to the New York Jets. He's gonna leave Green Bay. So how do you prepare for the next wave?
Yeah.
Are you willing to draft Jordan Love in the first round and upset
Aaron Rodgers
to invest in your future, knowing that at some point, it's not gonna continue like this.
No.
And it's gonna upset the status quo. There's gonna be friction in the locker room.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The executives probably gonna be disagreeing.
Yes.
A-Rod's he's not gonna be messing with the, with the GM. Like you gonna deal with beef all year. But then, okay, boom, now you look, this past season,
Yeah.
Jordan Love's balling,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it was the right decision.
It's the right decision.
It's a tough decision to make.
It's always gonna be a tough decision to make. And that's why you get paid the big bucks to make the tough decisions.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's good, man. That's good.
Oh man.
So I'm curious, man. I looked through your bio, kind of was breaking down your life as far as I could tell into chapters. And I just want to start with chapter 1, man.
Yeah.
From Louisiana.
Yeah, man. From Louisiana, grew up loving sneakers, parents worked at the chemical plant. I was young and, what I was exposed to were professionals that worked at chemical plants and go to school, get a good job, Also, like Louisiana, Baton Rouge is where I grew up. It's like 45 minutes outside of New Orleans. And we're very much a college town. Everything kind of revolved around LSU football. Mm-hmm. And then everyone else kind of worked at either in construction or chemical plants. And so as a young kid who loved sneakers, what I do today was not on the radar, didn't know how to get to this point. This was more so like, this is pure will for a long amount of time. It was more will and imagination than anything.
Yeah.
But like I would spend, like, dog, I worked at sneaker shops growing up. I would leave, I had this job in college, and I would leave this job at lunch to go buy sneakers. I would like go to this shop called Ruckus to go get, like when SBs were popping in 05, 06, I would go get, there was like these MF Dooms that released that I remember going and get this one time. I was like an hour and a half.
Wow.
And I was like,
on your lunch break. You're like, where is Bimma?
I was like,
these customers need help.
I was like, I'm going to get fired. But I was just deep in it. Like that was like, I would do what I needed to do, but like my passion, it was very clear. Mm-hmm. And in college, me and a friend ended up starting a streetwear brand. We ended up raising money from Tyrus Thomas, who it would go from LSU to play for the Bulls.
Okay.
And so like at a young age, like I was like starting to be very familiar with entrepreneurship and the risk of entrepreneurship and how to present ideas to get money and like all these different things. But I never really knew what to label. Like, if somebody asked me what my strengths are, or what I do, like I could never really quite put a finger on like how to say that, because I never had real direct role models who did those things, right? And so like even the idea around a streetwear brand, we didn't know anyone who had a streetwear brand. That's what folks were doing in New York and LA. We didn't know them, didn't know how to get in touch with them, too shy to even probably reach out to get in touch with them, And so a lot of the stuff we're kind of just learning, making mistakes.
This is social media is out, but we're talking MySpace.
Yeah, you're talking, MySpace era, Facebook. Like it's not like today where it's like I send a DM to you and like, we could just like have a whole conversation. It's a different mindset.
Yeah.
And so, I had always, one of our dreams was like, let's start a sneaker shop. Let's have a sneaker boutique. Let's sell our stuff there. And I would end up working with different, shops. Like the first shop I worked at was Pivot Foot. And then another shop was Politics, which is still around to this day. Like Politics is getting ready, to celebrate like 20 years in business. And so, man, like that was just my world. But I kind of gave up on it like when I got into like my mid-20s, because like I didn't see any opportunities to get there, didn't see any options to get there. There's no one like come and knock on my door, And I had kind of drifted into working this full-time gig, data entry gig after college. And I was bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
And like
you were still in Louisiana?
I was still in Louisiana, still living at my mom's house.
Straight out of LSU.
Bro, showing up to work in like cargo shorts and dunks and fitteds. And my peers are showing up in pleated polos with boat shoes. I couldn't be more different. Yeah. And so at the same time though, I was also a runner. And I've been a runner since like the 4th grade, 3rd grade. I've been running, that's just been my bag. And so I started this community about run culture, run community, and I would just interview different folks. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I needed something to kind of feel like the creative side of me. After I kind of like was like, this sneaker thing's not gonna happen. And that's what actually put me on the map for sneaker brands, because it was through social media. Instagram was popping, starting to pop. Twitter was already there, Facebook was there. And all we were doing was just build a community. So we were doing memes before memes. We were doing interviews, video interviews. We'd go to different community running events and like film the who's who that's there and just like try to just show off what was happening all across the state of Louisiana.
Okay.
And so like every Saturday, it was nothing for me to hop in my truck and drive 3 hours to an event, go to New Orleans for an event, go to wherever. And that's when like the Sauconys started reaching out. And
Okay.
like the Brooks Running started to reach out, and Adidas started to reach out.
Really?
They just saw what I was doing on the internet.
And does Louisiana, does it have a really big run culture?
Surprisingly, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And a large amount of that is like, we have really big races. And so we don't treat running like, obviously we have a serious like side to running, and we have like really elite athletes.
Okay.
The larger amount of the community is just an excuse to get together for us. And so like, we'll have this thing called Crescent City Classic in New Orleans. It's a 10K, 40,000 registrations. Damn. Right? We'll have, they'll do a marathon out there, like 20,000 registrations. At mile 10, there's somebody giving you a whiskey shot.
That's like, and you eating good at the finish line too.
Look, you got jambalaya, you got the good beer, like all of this stuff. It was so funny. My father-in-law came in town. We did for the marathon, and the Portland Marathon. No shade at Portland. I love Portland, but you got one drink ticket for a beer, and he was like, in Louisiana, you can get unlimited beer as a finish line. And he was like, what are they doing? I was like, hey, I want no smoke.
Yeah.
Smoke on this one. But yeah, so we'd have running clubs. Like, it reminded me of a Dead Side running club on Tuesday nights. I used to manage a running club back in Louisiana called Happy's Running Club. And we would get like 200 people on a Tuesday night to just come run a 5K and just have beer after. I made so many friends that way. We would go there at 6. I wouldn't leave till like 11 p.m. every week. It was crazy.
That's cool.
But so that was my way of getting into the sneaker industry, was just like kind of forgetting about it, naturally leaning into something that I was passionate about, and kind of bumping into something that somebody needed. And they needed, at the time, brands didn't know how to cultivate community on social. They were just taking like billboards and posting it on their accounts. Wow. But they didn't know how to like actually communicate.
And we're talking, this is like 2010.
This is 2011, 12.
11, 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like goofy times.
That's when I started my Instagram account, was 2011.
Yep.
It was a picture of a bowl of ramen noodles, watching SpongeBob in my homie's dorm. And I was like, this is gonna be my first Instagram post.
Was it over filtered? Because you had like Instagram, and like you throw all the filters on there.
Oh man, what? Oh, it was so grainy. That was so dramatic. That was the most dramatic SpongeBob episode ever. Yeah.
When I look at old stuff, I'm like, man, we was just like really learning. It was just like over vintage stuff,
Oh, man.
What was I doing?
Oh, bro, when I used to filter up the football photos, oh man, bro, the most intense filter, and it was on every one too.
What a little bad.
Yeah, no, so that's really early, right? Because it's like, that's before videos couldn't even be posted at only photos. Yeah. So it makes sense though that like more legacy brands are like, don't know how to do it, how to use it
at all.
We were still.
I was just like experimenting. I was like, I don't know, like, and then like they recruited, Saucony ended up recruiting me, and they were like, come run our global social media, and I was like, huh. But it was funny. Like, that's funny. Like, at that time, what you have to think about is like, think about these companies. They have all this hierarchy and this structure when it comes to every department. And so think about marketing. Like, the head of marketing is a CMO. A CMO has like a minimum of like 15, 20 years of marketing experience across multiple verticals. They are the decision maker of how this brand shows up in real time. Like, Jordan Brand's got a CMO, Nike's got a CMO, Converse, Adidas, etc. How they show up at Super Bowl, how they show up at All-Star Weekend. Mm-hmm. At this time, they didn't know what social media was. Imagine giving a 25-year-old the keys to your Twitter, your Facebook, and your Instagram.
Nuts.
Bro, I'm to the consumer. They don't see none of that other shit you posted. They talking to me in real time. Wow. None of that's like, you can spend millions of your budget on this stuff, and the only thing that actually matters is social, which is why everything is flipped now. Like, it's one of the most important marketing roles to exist because of the conversation and like the direct impact with the consumer.
Were you the first of that position?
First.
Wow.
I was the very first. There was like a tweet that was like, welcome Bimma Williams to Saucony's Twitter. Wow. I'm like, this is who's running the controls now.
Wow.
Now, there was this is when Miley first got hot after Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana, yeah.
And she was going crazy. Like, this was like Miley twerking everywhere.
Yeah.
And so she had just done the Grammys with Robin Thicke, and like the world had different responses to this. And I was like, there was no approval process. There was no one checking me. And so without thinking at all, I had this post. It was a running photo, and on the text on top of it, it said, "Twerk less, run more." And it was the most viral thing for a running brand of the time. I was like, running community was like, yes. Like, people responded to it like, this is hilarious. But it was like, eye-open is like, oh, when you figure out the cultural zeitgeist and figuring out how to pair it.
Through the lens of your brand.
Yeah. But that's just like, now, man, you know how many approvals and lawyers and like all this stuff, because they understand what social is now. Right. They're like, hey, you ain't doing that.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow, that's wild, bro.
Crazy, man.
Dang. So Saucony, you were running Twitter, Instagram, whatever the social media platforms at the time.
Yeah, and that was just like my first year,
Okay.
Like, I was at Saucony for almost 4 years, but by the time I was leaving, I had transitioned into lifestyle, retro run sneakers, and collaborations.
Okay.
And so like, that's where my love of collaborations came, honestly, when I was at Saucony, and like, I got the firsthand experience of working with accounts. Like, we did play clothes with the Clips. We did a Raekwon shoe, the Snow Beach polo inspired sneaker with Packer and Raekwon. Like, we were doing like these crazy sneaker projects, and I was like, I love this, man. I love the storytelling. I love the novelty. And it just reminded me of like, because I grew up loving Jordans and Dunks, and like, I could kind of see that, but this was doing it at a completely different way. And it was really tapping into like more niche creatives and thinkers versus like these big celebrities, or big, like big, well-known athletes. It was just a different approach. And so that was like, Saucony was just like a whole, like, I don't know, the MBA program for me. I got my graduate degree.
I mean, there for 4 years, it's a good duration, I guess, to kind of really be able to feel your way throughout the company and learn. Yeah. And I'm curious, just for maybe like folks who are early on in their career and then brought in for something like social media or something that's like geared more towards the novelty of like targeting, a younger generation or what have you. But you found a way to start to be more relevant throughout the company, and maybe don't want to call them more important roles, but maybe more relevant to like the bottom line.
Yeah. We're driving money now. Like, we're actually generating revenue. We're hitting the bottom line. We're critical to the goals of the company. Yeah.
And was there a strategy? What did you learn throughout that process?
Man.
Was it political?
Yeah.
Was it just like, here, I'm showing my value through social media, and they just come holler at me? Like, how did it work for you?
I learned a lot about office politics and dynamics. Yeah. And like, I was coming in the door super green. I didn't know what a lot of the roles meant and a lot of the titles meant. I didn't know what adhering to a job description meant. I was passionate. I would gravitate towards what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And I would say, thankfully, there were a few people within those walls that kind of recognized that I was like a hybrid creative business type.
Okay.
And they recognized that I didn't know what I didn't know, and that someone was going to have to kind of like protect my energy, per se. And so there would be moments where there's a lot of conversations that happen organizationally behind closed doors that I'm just not aware of, right? But one of the folks that recruited me at the time was the CMO of Saucony.
Okay.
And so I think he had a personal vested interest in kind of like—
You're one of his guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, I came in to do social media. He was very excited about that. And, he wanted me to grow on the marketing organizational chart, but he started to recognize that I kept like drifting into this originals lifestyle world and wanting to help out, stay late and do stuff. And there was an opportunity for this hybrid role when I was first getting ready to transition. And he was like, you shouldn't take that role. He was like, it's originals. It's like $13 million is the business at the time. And Saucony is a $300 million business. He was like, you're going to no man's land. He's like, just being honest with you, like, we don't invest in it. Theoretically, nobody cares. Like, it's a fun project, but it's not, you shouldn't put your career into this.
Right.
And I didn't listen. And because of a lot of the energy I was putting in there, the business became a $50 million business. And by the time I was 29, I was running that $50 million business globally. Didn't know what I was doing. But my instincts would typically handle a lot of these things for me. And so I was one of those folks that I never leaned into the stuff that I wasn't really good at. I would just focus on the stuff that I did know, where I knew how to add value, and I would just get better at those things. And so some of the stuff I did know was like, I knew social better than anyone in the building. And so I paired that with influencer marketing. And so we started very early on managing direct relationships with YouTubers and started to grow the business that way. And then from there, we started figuring out how we can, my mentor, Mike Hughes, he was the only one there working on originals. He had started this foundation with sneaker boutiques. And so we started figuring out, okay, how can we do better collabs there? And then how can we develop a D2C program where we do exclusive sneakers, release them D2C only, work with the influencers to promote them. And we ended up creating a multi-million-dollar line for the brand that they didn't plan for. And so stuff like that was like, this is just a good idea. I'm not looking yet. I hadn't been trained on like, what's the business case for this? Why do we do this? What's the audience? What's what's the concept behind it? How does it look? All of that stuff, I learned that later,
Right.
But in those moments, it was just like, instinct is like, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Is anyone here to stop me? No, we're doing it.
Cool.
So I would also learn like, just have folks blocking and tackling, but most importantly, the only way folks are gonna block and tackle is if you get wins, right? No one's blocking for you if you ain't winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, every time he do some shit, it don't work out, I'm good.
I'm gonna block you. You gotta make somebody miss. Look, you gotta make a play. I'll block for you, but you gotta make a play.
You gotta make a play. And so quickly I learned like, if I was gonna I learned about having influence. And if you were gonna get influence, you gotta make plays. You gotta make other people look good, right? And you gotta have a vision for doing something that's just gonna be fun and exciting, because we all wanna be a part of something fun, exciting, and new. And that's what I learned. And thankfully I had a lot of people, even my CMO, he came around. He ended up going to a different part of the business, but he came around, he's like, I didn't know, I didn't see it, but you saw it. He's like, I'm glad you did. I was like, and I listened to him. Like, obviously, like I'm not crazy. I think if you got folks in your life that have been different places and they're gonna give you wisdom, you gotta take it. Right. I was like, I took some of the wisdom. I was like, I just applied it in a different way and had to figure out what was gonna work for me. But that's one of the big things. It's like, you gotta take the risk, but you also gotta be smart about, is this a calculated risk that can work out? You can't just go, because your reputation is all you got. And I hate to say it, but like, we don't live in an environment where you can make a big miss and then they're gonna give you another shot. Yeah. Like, you gotta win.
Right. Yeah, it's the balance between being calculated and being willing to take the risk at the end of the day and listen to your instincts and what you see and what you feel and go after it. Yeah. And I think that like, you got to have some misses to have some makes. You have to. Like, you got to make mistakes. We were talking about experimentation earlier. I think that's like such a critical part to our growth as creatives, as business people, as athletes, as whatever the case is. Like, I think about things often through the lens of football, and one of the things I learned throughout my career is like early on in my career, as an undrafted guy. I was, undrafted dudes, they not supposed to make the team. I made the 53-man roster, but felt like I was walking on eggshells. I was afraid to make a mistake, right? And so with that first couple of years of my career, I didn't try a whole lot of new stuff. I just did what
I knew was gonna work.
You know what I mean? I set that edge and I did my pass rush, whatever. But then as I grew on in my career, I realized that the guys who were really out there making plays and like the best pass rushers in the league were the guys who was in training camp trying new stuff. I'm gonna try this fake spin left and then see what I can do if I can get by him. I might actually in one-on-ones look like an idiot. I might get put on my butt, and like be embarrassed in that moment. Yeah. But there will be one risk that I take that's gonna work. And then I'm gonna be able to put that in my bag and have something that I do that nobody else
does.
You know, and then, you know, throughout the career, like some guy came up with this cross chop move and was just getting sacks after sack after sack. And the rest of the league started doing it, you know what I mean? And followed along. So it's like, it's the balance, right? Yeah. It's like growing in your career and being able to gain the trust enough from your audience or your, you know, your management, whatever, to take the risk, right? And then be willing to take that risk, you know, and put it in your bag whenever you do learn that that new move or that, you know, that new industry, or whatever it is.
Yeah, you gotta be willing to take risk in order to see what's gonna work, and also to see what the environment is gonna want too. I think, like, especially when we're in an environment where everything kind of seems so consistent and folks are doing the same thing. The other thing that's important about experimentation is sometimes you gotta get folks used to something new. You get what I mean? Yeah. Like, you can't just put something out there and expect them to know what it is. Like, you have to also be aware of how to communicate that this is different, communicate that, hey, this is a good thing. Like, hey, this is why it's of value, right? Because sometimes when we just get stuck in like a certain thing, like if there's a certain type of, like, remember trap music had such a hold over like our ears for like 4 years, and like people would introduce other things and people would be like, nah, trap. And it's a mixture of like right messenger and also communicated the right way.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so, you know, if we have somebody like a Dolce breaking through right now, right? It's because it's the right messenger at the right time, communicating the right way and communicating consistently. And what you have to realize is when you're breaking in something new, you can't share it and expect it to grab immediately. You have to punch consistently, repeatedly, for folks to be like, oh, this is a new thing. Oh, I'm getting it. Oh, okay. It you know, and it takes time. Very rarely do things have product market fit at the same time, meaning very rarely do you create a product and the market is ready for it at the time that you present it. Sometimes it's gonna take you time to massage it. And a confident creative who's taking the time to do the work behind what they know, they're not gonna get their teeth kicked in because they feel a certain way because they didn't get the immediate response they wanted. They know it's right, they just know it's gonna take time. And a lot of cats, that's just one of the things I just try to share is like, if you've taken the time to do your homework and you realize you got something that you're passionate about, you recognize it solves a need and there's nothing else like it in the marketplace, be patient. Just keep hitting them with it, and eventually they're gonna get it.
Yeah.
It just might take them some time.
I have a good friend who he says, skate to where the puck is going.
Hey.
Skate to where the puck goes.
Where it's been. No.
Go to
foresight.
Where it's going.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
So you're at Saucony, boom, you're there for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then that gave you the opportunity. Was that after Saucony you came to Portland?
Yeah.
It was
literally February 13th. So Thursday is my 8-year anniversary in Portland. Okay. So yeah, we came for Adidas. I wanted a bigger opportunity. I love Saucony, but at just, 29, running that global the lifestyle side of the organization, there wasn't other folks that could mentor me because all of the other folks had experience in performance running. No one had experience in this space. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need mentorship to help me understand how to plan, how to grow a product range, how to market it, how to lead a team. Like all of these things, it's like, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And the president at the time, he was like, I'll be your mentor, but he's got a lot of stuff on his plate, And there's stuff I wanted them to invest in that I couldn't get them across the line to invest in. And ultimately I was like, I need to go somewhere where I can like see and learn. I'm just, I'm a human like anybody else. I want to grow every year. I want to grow. Adidas was rebuilding some things. They were introducing business unit for Yeezy. There was also a special projects division that was in place. And so I was like, I want to go learn, Adidas is doing a great job, at Pharrell, and a couple other artists at the time. And so I was like, let me go see. And so Kaylin and I, we ended up moving here. I think we've been here one time, Portland was never on the
That's a long way
on the radar for moving. And it was a great decision because one, Caitlin would go on to start her ice cream business.
Shout out, Case.
Shout out to Case Ice Cream. And I would go on to grow as a creative and a professional and just like make relationships that I never would have made. You know, I joke with people about, you know, the difference between being in Louisiana and being in Portland is that in Louisiana, I would never accidentally run into a C-suite executive at a top sneaker brand on a regular Saturday.
Right.
Whereas here, I'll give you an example, and I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't want to put their business out there, but I was on a walk in St. John's, and I was on my bike in St. John's, and I remember because there used to be a bike shop on the corner, and Bloke Bikes, I think is what it was called, and there's a garage around the corner, like a car garage, and I was just walking back, getting ready to go get my bike, and I see this tall, skinny, older white man with salt pepper hair, and he had Nike spokes and he had Nike shoes on. And I never seen anyone with prescription Nike spokes.
Right.
And I was just like, that's kind of confusing. And he said, "What's up?" I said, "What's up?" And I looked in the garage, and there are like 10 different niche, limited cars in this garage, okay? I'm not gonna blow up the man's spot. I'm gonna just tell you there's millions of dollars worth of cars in this garage.
Yeah.
And I said, are these yours? And we just started having a whole conversation.
Okay.
And then he goes on to tell me what he does and where he works. And I was like, it's funny because I was in between my non-compete. I was in between heading from Adidas going to Nike. I couldn't go. I had this non-compete. So I had like a year.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I'll be coming there such and such. I think I was going to be there sometime in 2020. It ended up getting cut short. So I ended up coming 6 months early. He's like, hit me up when you come on campus. And I was like, this would never happen in Louisiana.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Crazy.
That's nuts,
Crazy,
bro.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, Portland is it's that balance. It's like feels like a small town, but we're not a small town. We're bigger than a small town. Yes. We're a city.
Yes.
You know, but the community is so tight knit, and then also so much of our industry is wrapped up in sports, apparel, creative.
Yeah.
That like that niche community is really closely tied together.
It's so small, and everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
And I always tell folks, I'm like, you know, because like folks will see kind of how I communicate online. And I'm like, you got to be aware of like the nuances to this though. I was like, you know, a part of this is like a lot of the things that I speak about and the projects that I speak about, I know the people on these projects. So there's one part to this. I was like, the other part is like, I've worked in this. Like I have credibility and equity in this space. They know that too. And so the way I communicate is not in a way that a lot of other people can't communicate because they don't have the respect in the space to do that. And so I'm also like, a lot of times some of this is inside jokes between me and friends. I was like, so a lot of times like some stuff will go over heads, but I'm like, you know, you gotta understand the dynamics of the space. And so it just like, it's so small and everyone is from one brand to the next brand. They might be there, they might go somewhere else. And so it's a fun thing. But again, man, like one of the things I'd always share to people is like proximity is very important when it comes to being creative, especially entrepreneur creative. Yeah. And you got to be where it's at. They're not coming to you. They don't know you exist. And you need to be loud about your existence in order for you to get work. Like it's just a reality of the space because I feel like I went through it in my career where it was like coming from the South, you know, came from a very Baptist background, and a lot of the things that I grew up learning were helpful things. They were not helpful for me as a creative. And what I mean by that was the way that folks think about being humble and advocating for yourself would be communicated as cocky or arrogant, as a negative thing. And I'm gonna just be frank that if you're not advocating, you're not eating. As simple as that. there's so many other people that are close to decision makers that are asserting themselves, reminding them of what they do. And those are the people that get fed. There's brilliant people who create brilliant work who aren't loud enough, who aren't eating. And it's because they aren't loud enough.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing. I'm naturally an introvert. A lot of people won't know that. I've had to develop the skill sets of extroverts. But please believe, when I go home, I'm on my couch and I don't want to talk to nobody.
That social battery is deranged.
Bro, it be done. I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. I am good. My phone lives on Do Not Disturb. Always. And people get so mad at me because they be like, bro, I tried to call you. I was like, yeah, I'm not available.
Yeah. I had a friend tell me, he said, he had like a little thought of the day last week. He said, stars aren't made, they're marketed.
Ooh, that's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact. You got a lot of people that's okay, but their marketing and their messaging around them, it takes them to a whole different place.
100%. Yeah. And I think, growing up here in Portland, there is, like, obviously this is the proximity, right? You got Nike, you got Adidas, you got Under Armour, you got, Lulu, you got all these kind of different offices here that just like support the creative ecosystem. But as a city, we're really prideful around individuality and keep Portland weird. It was like, that was our bat signal.
Yeah.
And that's, me growing up, I wasn't like really a part of that Keep Portland Weird. I didn't know where that was coming from, and like the punk rock scene and just everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But I was, in a way, I was influenced, like we used to wear a lot of vintage when I was in high school, and like my high school homies, like the older kids, just white dudes at Central Catholic who were just like really big into the old school snapbacks. This is before New Era started doing the snapbacks. It was like we're going on eBay and we're going into the thrift stores. We're getting like the jackets too, right? And like how we're putting the hat with the, the Abercrombie, t-shirt. And it was just that expression of like fashion. Partially it came from my household, my pops too, the way that, he's always dressed really well, but it was also embraced by the Portland community to the point then when I go down to, when I left and went to California and went to school, like my willingness to go against the grain because of that upbringing, that embrace, some of my roommates and like guys on the team would make fun of me. Like, bro, you wearing Timbs? Why you wearing Timbs?
Yeah.
The homies from LA like, Timbs, you're tripping. Timbs in a peacoat. Like I'm on some different shit, I'm in the Bay Area, Timbs in a peacoat.
They're like, what you doing, bro?
And that has kind of been like a theme throughout my life, is just being willing to, dress how I dress and talk the way I want to talk, et cetera, that I think is really embraced by Portland. We embrace individuality and doing things a different way.
Man, I can't advocate enough for that. And I think sometimes I'm like, man, Portland probably get mad at me if I keep talking about this, because it's like our greatest secret. And that is that a lot of people come here from bigger cities, and the thing that I constantly hear is Portland don't have nothing going on. Y'all don't have nothing going on. And I'm like, we do. You just have to search for it.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of our stuff happens at dinner tables at houses. It happens in pockets of St. John's.
Right.
Like when I tell people, I'm like, you ever heard of Settlemire? They're like, no. I was like, those jackets, the Lettermans that you like, that you see like LeBron wearing and you see Fear God, that's made in Portland. And then I talked to them about like D, and I was like, yeah, there's a factory that's in Northeast that makes all of these things from scratch. And they're like, wait, word? I was like, yeah, the agency that makes a lot of these campaigns, they like White and Kennedy, they like right here. Yeah. They started to be like, oh, I was like, and them restaurants that, a lot of the New York chefs, they test a lot of their stuff here, and then they actually just end up staying here because we got a great food community. I was like, so like, you got to be interested in Portland to be interested in you. You know what I mean? Like it works both ways.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, man, I can't be telling them all of this.
Well, best kept secret, man.
Man, I mean, I honestly, without Portland, I wouldn't be the creative I am, A lot of things you already listed: proximity to people, the ability to cultivate ideas here quickly and inexpensively here, the weather. A lot of other places, if I lived in LA, I'd probably be way too much outside, just keeping it a buck. In Portland, I'm not outside. I'm at my house and I'm cooking, not food. I'm literally cooking ideas.
In that basement.
In it, you know, because I'm not going out in the rain, dog. Like, I'll go hike every once in a while, but I'm not like, you know, I'm not like outside like that. And so it gives me the ability to be hyper productive as a creative and hyper creative, like imaginative and tapping in with other creatives. Like there's just so much stuff that we get to do that I'm like, y'all got too many distractions. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll travel to other places and get inspiration. 100%. When it's time to cook, I'm in Portland. I'll see you later.
Yeah, sir. It's a great place to come home to, right? Great place to come home to.
Yeah. I rocked a boat at ComplexCon. I was trying to strike a chord of creativity, but I guess I struck a nerve. Because where I'm from, we say a hit dog hollers. There's a difference between hate and a critique. The latter is a gift. And in return, you try to reduce me to a hater, provoked by Joe the Instigator. And even though y'all tried to have me standing up there silently, I didn't need a mic because the community stood with me. Now, no one on that panel has walked in these 11.5s. Let's talk about it. I work retail in Lil Weezy's Anna, helped manage a Billy at Adidas and Yeezy, created a #1 podcast uplifting us and spread 250K back to us. And last week I pulled up on the black students at the University of Oregon, then drove back to my mid-century in the burbs where the microwave is as excellent as my resume. Respectfully, I'm not telling you what you can't do. I believe in you. I'm just saying go further, go farther, go harder. Is that not why we came? And if not, then why bother? But enough of all that. I'm Bimma and you're in the Collab Lab. One of the things that I said I wanted to do this year was last year I felt very, and for a good reason, like I did it intentionally, but I was isolated. And it was because I was like in the bunker, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to rebuild. And so I was like, I just needed to be hyper focused. I need to be in a space where I could do something consistently. Kind of feels like athlete mentality, you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's time to go train. Like I ain't going to the dinner parties, I ain't going to the events. I'm in the lab and I'm literally working on myself. How can I get better?
Yeah.
As we got towards like 3/4 of the year, I was like, okay, well, I see the fruits of what I've been doing. I really was like, I want to get to know more of my counterparts that make sneaker related content. And so this year I was like, I wanted to do a better job of collaborating with
Are you reaching out?
And so yeah, both ways. So I'll reach out to people, but like after the Yachty thing, it kind of put me in like a high visibility spot. So a lot of people come out and reach out for that. Yeah. I tried to like navigate that space delicately because I was like, I didn't want to do a bunch of interviews about just the Yachty moment. Right. But I was like, I recognize like it comes with it. And so you gotta be like, it just is what it is. It's a part of the story. Yeah. I recognize that one of the things that I can teach a lot of like those peers of mine is how can you package content into a product? And then how can you take that product and then monetize that product? And I was like, I've done that several times now. And also teaching them that there's other routes than brand partnerships, you know? And so I'm like, that to me is like, I'm like, yeah, I'm a young OG now. So I get to like,
Yeah, you school.
I gotta give some game.
School, bro. You're schooling.
I speak a lot about sneakers, but I think the thing that I want to be known for, you know, when I think about legacy-wise is like, the information that I can share from the journey. I think it's important for me to share with folks that you can do this in a full-time capacity, but there's things that you have to know business-wise in order to do that, right? How to present and relationships and understanding how to target an audience.
Man.
You know.
Yeah, tough, bro.
Cause you know, in a sea of competition, you gotta know, figure out the ways to stand out and be your authentic self. But there's just like so many of these young cats that I speak with. It's not that they're not curious, they're just not looking in the right places. A lot of cats, I'm like, if you got 100 dedicated viewers and they're willing to pay you $20, $50 a month for 4 pieces of content, that's a good chunk of change.
Yeah, right.
You know, versus like, I need 100,000 views. Do you? Do you need 100,000 views?
Yeah.
Or do you need the right folks?
Right, and just understanding that audience.
Do you know how many people have 1,000 ideas that don't work? It's like, your first idea doesn't work. Like, your second one doesn't work. Like, but they get better. They just get better. They just keep, if you stick with it, it gets better. Like, it's just reps. I'm like, it's not rocket science. It's literally reps. Learn from the last rep. That's all. How many takes? Like, how many reps did it take to get there? How many songs did Drake and Kendrick put out before they were even relevant enough to anyone to even care about this rap beat? You know what I mean? Like, how many songs had to exist before we can get to these places? And it's like, don't get me wrong. Again, like we talked about a little bit, product market fit. There are the anomalies that release something and the world was ready. And it's like, I don't know how you knew, but shout out to you.
Right.
But for the rest of us, it's like, test. No. And eventually you have like this great moment. And I think that's really special. Like, I love like to know that you put in the work and you finally, it's like watching, who's homie that played for the Eagles that was retiring this year and he won his second championship. Yes, and I thought that was so beautiful when it was like, oh shit, like he's been like putting in the work. Yeah. He gets to go out in like the most beautiful way.
He was hurt all year.
Yeah. And I was like, but we just in this culture where we think like people win, everything somebody does, they win. And I'm like, that's not real.
No, it's not real. I had so my brother is down in LA, he just started a new gig. Mm-hmm. He's doing sales, it's like logistics sales. Mm-hmm. And he's pretty fired up about it because it's competitive and they got like, it's called bonuses. The bullpen is like where everybody's like the call center basically.
Yes.
And folks just like figure fun.
Tell him to watch Boiler Room.
Boiler Room?
Boiler Room, I mean, he probably watched Wolf of Wall Street, but tell him watch Boiler Room.
Yeah. He said he's the Wolf of Slauson. Oh, so he called me earlier this week and he was like, yeah, man, like, I had the best day in the office. I was the leader in the office. I was like, what you mean? He's like, I did the most calls, 150 calls. And he said, I booked 2 meetings. He said, I led the office in bookings today, in meetings booked.
Yeah, bro.
150 calls.
That means 148, click, no.
And that's the same lesson, right? With creatives and like projects and trying something. You know what I mean? Like, that's the percentage.
That's the percentage.
Less than 1%. It's
yes.
0.5% hit rate.
Yes. Gotta love the process. You have to fall in love with the process of what you're doing, not the outcome. Yeah. Like, if you love making music, you just gotta love it, man. It can't be, I need streams. It can't be, I need awards. It can't be like, I need y'all to acknowledge me. It's gotta be like, this is just my thing. And that's what you feel like you're here to do. Because if you, the other way, yeah, you go ahead and figure out your next thing. I'm gonna tell you now, because you ain't gonna be in it long. Rigid with the vision, flexible with how you get there. Yeah, you don't change the vision, but you need to be flexible about how you're gonna build what you're gonna build and the nuances of things that will change. And it's just good to have, you gotta stay surrounded by that type of stuff. You gotta be people that think that way, books, content, whatever you can get your hands on, because there's so many other negative thoughts in the world that will take you off of this and you won't believe it's achievable. And I mean, y'all know, you have to be damn near in denial.
Yeah. I really cut down on my social media intake over the last year and it's helped out a ton. It's helped me be more convicted about my creative ideas.
Now that's the word.
Yeah.
That's the word. I had a lengthy conversation about the word conviction over New Year's. We were in Mexico City at the Soho House and it was me and my best friend and his partner and my wife, Caitlin. And we were having a very passionate conversation about how we both struggle with taking anyone's ideas serious if we can't sense conviction in them. And like, meaning like, if I push back on your idea, a lot of times I'm not pushing back on an idea because I have strong opinion on it. I'm pushing back to see if you dig your heels in. Because if you're not convicted about it, especially for someone like me, like when I know what I know what the value of that dollar is. And if you want me to put even my face behind it, or if you want me to put a connection behind it, I gotta know you gonna die on the hill for it, or else I look crazy, right? Yeah. You gotta be convicted about this stuff. Like, there's so much stuff in the world, like, it's hard enough to make it happen. And if you ain't convicted, it ain't happening.
Yeah. And it's so easy to talk yourself out of conviction.
Bro.
Your own conviction, you could talk yourself out of it.
In 2 seconds.
Like, it doesn't even maybe take someone else to like ask, you know, like push back.
Yeah.
Right? It can always just happen upstairs.
Mentally.
You know, like scrolling through social and you see somebody else doing a podcast that like, oh, they're blowing up. You're like, damn, they doing something different than you. Like, damn, my shit must not be, it's not it. You know, so you start talking yourself out of it. I think partially like, for me, it's helped to kind of just be in my own little world. My own little world, doing my own little thing. And you talked about like kind of like this last year, you were in the bunker,
bro.
Just getting right. You know, just working on
rep every day. Rep. Can I do better? Rep. Try this today. Try it this way today. Try it that way. Every day is an opportunity to. Yeah. It's a new day.
And it's hard not to be convicted when that is the format of your days.
Yeah, yeah. You like, this is it, bro. Like, I'm gonna make it from this. Like, this is what, and it's like, this is what I can manage, right? So I'm like, I can't manage, at that time, I couldn't manage a big operation. What I can manage was, what can I create and do and put out myself? And what I can manage is what I can say from here, what I can write, and the limited editing abilities I had to edit something in 55 seconds. So I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna get as good as possible at this. And I'll tell you when and so when you're at that point, like, the confidence is shaky. And it should be, because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Your confidence should be shaky. That is the sign to you, you're on the right path. When you don't have a confidence, you're experimenting with something. That's why it's also important to experiment in a safe environment, because your confidence is so shaky. You need to be in an environment where you can get it together. You're not going to be impacted tremendously by like negative feedback, and you can have sort of constructive direction to get better. Like when we go into training camp, like that's all training camp is, right? It's constructive, safe environment to experiment, try things so we can get better for the actual season. And so, dog, like, I'm in there in the bunker, sharpening up, getting better. And I remember going into last year, I was frustrated. And I was frustrated because I felt like I was doing quick, short videos. And I was like, man, like, I feel like I'm giving out really good information. And this shit is duds. Like, it was like 4,000 views. And it's like, not that the view is, the view's not the important thing. The engagement to me is the most important thing. Like, are folks engaging in a conversation? Like, what can I do better? Yeah. I remember I had this conversation. I reached out to Kevin Concepts, and I was like, Kevin, what I'm doing wrong, bro? I was like, I'm watching your videos, dog. You got like 700,000 views on this thing. Comments going crazy. Nice Kicks hype beats posting it. It's like, what are you doing? Right. And he's like, Bimma, you know how Kevin is, you know, he's so chill, relaxed, and like calm. And he's like, you're doing great, bro. Show, don't tell. I say, what you talking about, Kevin? He was like, Bimma, you done seen stuff that we ain't seen. He's like, but you be telling us. You don't show us. How? And I was like, bet. He was like, show, don't tell. I said, cool. Then I called my homie Jordan Rogers. And I was like, Jordan, you done figure some shit out? I was like, what did you figure out? He was like, what you mean? I was like, you know what I'm talking about. Your video's going crazy right now. Yeah. And he's like, he's another one of these short form specialists. And he was like, hey, you know, I focus on sports. I focus on sports marketing. These are 4 areas that I focus on. And, you know, I just try to like attack that. And I was like, bet. So February 2024 comes around. It's Fashion Week, and Pharrell is getting ready to do his second show with Louis Vuitton. Okay. And at the time, there was a rumor about Pharrell, Louis Vuitton, and Timberland. And then I started to see it on social media. And I was like, well, I like to talk about marketing. I have a deep marketing background. Let me see if I can put something together. So I put this video together, and it's basically like, man, Pharrell knows how to get our attention, don't he? And I just like, you know, he did the seating here, he did the Tim boot here, blah, 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 blah. 275,000 views. I said, huh? So it didn't immediately click.
Yeah.
I got the outcome, but it didn't immediately click why.
Yeah.
And so I started to do more kind of marketing videos connected to culture. And so like J. Cole's rollout when he was doing the vlog videos he was dropping earlier last year.
Yeah.
And then there was like a back-to-back Tyler, Pharrell, and like Toby videos. And they all just like hit. And I realized they were all sneaker related. And then I realized like, oh, y'all don't know about the stuff that I be talking about in my group chats with my marketing homies? And I was like, oh, this is my shit. It's something, it don't take me no time to do this. This is just what I text and talk about in general.
Wow.
And when I figured that out, man, it went from experimentation to deliberate. And I deliberately started to focus on sneakers, marketing, and specifically collabs. I stopped every other type of content I was doing. I didn't do no more carousels. I didn't try to post in other places. I didn't do no more. I was doing like scripts and like sharing those ideas. I just focused on the reels. There were days that I would post a video and I wake up the next day with 10,000 new followers. And I was like, what is happening? There were days where I'd have a video crack 1 million. I didn't have to do no dance. Wow. I sat in a chair and just was like, this, and this, and this is what happened. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for. How can I share and that's the hardest thing for a creative like me is because I'm not a photographer. I'm not a director of photography. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not an apparel designer. What I offer is all mental. How do I show the value of that? And when I figured out how to do that in video form, I was like, yeah, I'm going hard on this, harder than anything. And that's when the confidence, like when you're building something new, like I knew I was in a rebuilding year last year after we had sunset Claima, like we got impacted early by the DEI switch and we got bucketed in the DEI. The budgets started to disappear February 23. So I knew that. And like, obviously we can go back through those things, but just for this point right now, I expected my rebuild to take a lot longer and I'm still in my rebuild. But what I mean was, I didn't expect to have a new concept. Like I was like very much in a space of like, I'm just gonna experiment and like, we're gonna get there.
Playing the sandbox.
It's gonna take us some time to get there. We just in a sandbox right now.
Yeah.
And to have something that hit and then package it within the same year and then have the audience respond, I was like, yeah, this is crazy. But this is the end of the 5 year, but we could start on the beginning of the 5 year.
But you found this moment, and like we were talking about earlier, through experimentation, right? Because when I started following your content, it was a lot of marketing education as a whole. And I imagine that's what Kevin maybe was telling you were telling us. You were telling us how to do it. And I appreciated a lot of that content, bro. And I really, I kind of bookmarked it.
He's like, it's back here.
Yeah, put it in the back of my head and started to apply some of them, like some of the things that you've talked about having a uniform.
Yeah.
Some of the creative ways on being able to get projects funded.
Yeah.
Right, because you had a podcast at Portland State University.
It was the first season of Claima Stories was funded by Portland State, and we figured out the mechanism that made it mutual for both of us. Right. And, I was like, that helped me buy equipment, helped me rent space, you know, helped me with editing, like stuff like that will allow us to present ourselves just a little bit elevated, you know, and just a little bit try to separate ourselves from maybe like our peers that are in the same class, right? And that was what that was about, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And it's interesting because now you are a collab marketing educator. That's the title.
Yeah.
And it's narrow.
It's narrow.
It's collab marketing educator.
Yeah.
So an educator, that can mean a lot of different
Yeah.
things. You can have a speaking engagement on
Yes.
that, or you can be a consultant, or
Yes.
you could be a strategist or whatever, right? But collab marketing, that is a narrow thing.
Yeah.
And before this, I'm just thinking like Claim of Stories was a podcast with all different types of creatives.
Yep.
And then it was marketing education.
Yep.
And then you found the collab like that, the Pharrell, Louis Vuitton, that video hit.
Yeah.
And then, bro, it seems like over the last 5 years, it's been a dance of trying to find the position of your brand. And so I'm curious just how you share like some lessons of how you found that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like from a branding perspective, the way that you present with the purple and the brown, it's dope. It's dope, bro. You're one of the few people that I know do that. Like, we had Ian Williams was the first episode, it was the first recorder. And he said he talks about how you're like a cartoon character.
Yeah. He called me Doug Funny.
So, like cartoon characters always wear the same. He talked about, I think it was the episode of Doug, where like Doug opens up his closet. It's like all the same sweater vest. But like even that, you know, finding that and making that decision.
Yeah.
And now over the past 5 years of your entrepreneurial career, like finding an even more narrow brand. I'm just curious, just holistically the lesson.
Yeah, man. So, you know, I think one of the big things that I recognized about how I was going to go about this thing was that I'm not a creator that leans into trend. And if you're not going to be a creator that leans into trend, your path is going to be a bit more difficult, right? Because you're not going to get those pops of moments where because you used a viral sound, your video is going to pop, or because like such and such is on this style of video, you're going to pop, right? For me, I was like, man, I got my own lane, my own vision. And when you have that, it's going to take you some time to get other people to come around to that. Even if it's good for them, you know, it's still going to take some time for you to build up your own credibility, for them to trust you. Right. And I think that's one important thing that I have to share with folks is like, it's not that the idea isn't good, right? It's not that what you're sharing is not good. It isn't valuable. A lot of times it is, but trust goes a long way because they have to trust that what you're doing is going to make them money. They have to trust that what you're doing is going to give them something back in their day. Right. And man, when I started out, I am so appreciative that I had the experience working in marketing for brands, because there was a couple of things that I learned that I recognized that some of the other cats in my class at the time of 2019, 2020 that were doing content, they just didn't instinctually know. And what I knew from day one was how to create a brand. I've always known since I was 18 how to create a brand. And what I mean by that is not, a lot of people think of brand and they think logo. Dog, that is not a brand. A brand is how people feel about you when you're not in the room. Do they remember what it is that you offer when you are not in the room? When we see golden arches, we know what that means. When I smell them French fries, I know where they from. That's the brand. You know what I mean? Da, 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 da. I know what that, I ain't even got to say the rest. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So when I learned these things, I was like, okay, so I'm not building a podcast. I'm building a brand. And this brand, Claim of Stories, is about, was about at the time, right? It was about how can we elevate Black and brown creatives to teach folks about the creative process, to teach them about what was offered in the process. And I knew, I was like, okay, well, how do we do this in a couple of different ways that is going to help us stand out? And so one of the ways that we were going to do that was like, well, we need to have a color branding system that can help us stand out, because folks might not remember the logo. They might not remember me. They might not remember an episode, the name. And so I said, well, let's figure out from a color standpoint what we can do. And so purple was one of those things that I started to latch on to When I started thinking about other brands that use color really well, and people just really can associate their brand. So Hermes, orange, I know what that is. Right. Tiffany, that Tiffany blue, you know what that is. Chicago Bulls, red, we know. Jordan brand, they use colors in such a way. And what really truly inspired me was, I would say sports was the biggest inspiration when it came to how I thought about color, because I thought about teams and I thought about like, man, this is just so dope. And so purple was one of those first things that I was like, one, it wasn't about did other people use it or not. It was about what does it mean and how does it connect to me? And the color purple to me at the time, you gotta think like the country's been so divisive. The world's been so divisive. And like we're always separated, right? And so we're like red, we're blue, whether it's gangs, whether it's politics, it's separate. And I was like, I wanna bring people together.
Yeah.
Purple. The other thing was I'm from Louisiana, and I recognize that I've been on a path that a lot of my peers haven't been able to go on. And I recognize a lot of them still follow me, and there's a lot of homies that I'm still in touch with. And I wanted to send a nod back home. So I wore a purple hat to make it very visible and clear that I'm representing you wherever I'm at. Yeah. Right. And so that was, one of the things I had to realize was like, if podcasts, if there were 1 million podcasts that were created in 2020, versus like the previous year, I think it was like somewhere like 200,000. There's a sea of competition. How do you stand out beyond just your content, right? Yeah. Like content, if your content is good, it markets itself, right? Yeah. But that's also not enough. And like you kind of already pointed out, right? Like stars aren't made, they're marketed. That's the whole thinking behind that too. So that's one of the things. So like we're on a journey of like, how can we separate? Like, how can we stand out in this sea? So that was one of the first things. The second thing that I realized was, if I am the host and you see all of these hosted people all the time differently, a lot of people, when I look at their socials, they don't get retention. Like they'll have a video that pops, but people won't follow. And then they don't remember who this person is. And the marketing brain in me is like, well, there's a reason why a logo exists. So I can remember what it is. That's the reason why the name exists. So at some point, if I see it enough times, I remember. Yeah. And I was like, I'm the logo. I'm the logo. I am the brand. So if you see me consistently in a certain thing, speak in a certain way consistently, then the only thing you can associate with me is that. Right. It's a commitment. The third thing it does, it gives people something to talk about. Because while a uniform is not unusual, it's not unusual. But when we see it in areas outside of sports, outside of servicemen, and outside of companies, we think, oh my God, that is so strange. It's like, you decided to wear 7 of 7 days a week? That's so weird. No, it's not. It's not weird at all. But because of society, because we're so used to buying things, we're so used to wearing different things, if we go out one night and you see me the next night and I'm wearing the same thing, you like, what's going on with B? And I'm like, that's the point. Yeah. Because now what I've effectively done is I've done these things. I've associated you with the color purple. I've set up subject matter that you now associate with. And now third, I also have you talking about something that relates back to that, right? And so it's really thinking through you have to really think through the dynamics of human interaction, how we think, what we pay attention to, what are the needs that we need in order to get something to stick. And that's what I mean about conviction, right? Like I'm convicted to this, right? Like my wife is like, you gonna wear brown all the time. I'm like, and I take my brand serious. Like I go to, shout out to the ladies at the Influential on MLK, Eileen and Nakia. They take care of my locks. And I remember when I started growing my locks and we were talking about the journey, And I say, yeah, you know, this is also gonna be a part of my personal brand. And I was like, one, they're gonna be a certain length, so we're gonna have to cut them every couple months. And we gotta get the color right. They usually get so mad at me about cutting my locks. And then Nakia was like, you can only get your hair dyed once a year. Cause she's like, they're very protective of my hair. And she's like, yeah, does it get dried out, whatever. But like all these things are like intentional things because competition is heavy. And also I don't create things that are trendy. And so you have to think about all these other things if you want to go this route in order to have staying power in a world where we look at something different every 7 seconds. Our ADHD is higher than it's ever been. We are more distracted than we've ever been. And so if you want to stand out, if you want to really rise above, you got to do some interesting things.
Yeah.
That feel good to you with integrity, right? Mm-hmm. And like for me, this is like, I'm a brand marketer. This is fun to me, you know? Like this isn't like, I don't make these decisions and I'm like, oh man, I got to step outside like this today. I'm like, nah, I'm happy to step outside like this today, you know? Right. So that was one of the big things was like that. The second lesson was.
Before you get into the second.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that your dreads always at the same length.
Dog, they've never changed length since they've been this length.
I didn't realize that. Now that you say that, I'm like, damn, this dude's hair has been the same. Bro, what?
Bro, every year we have a cut.
Wow.
Bob length always. I don't want long hair, bro.
Wow, bro. It's like, bro, it's an investment in titlelessness.
Bro, there's no one else. That's the thing. There's no one else. You can't mistake me for anyone else. It's not possible. And that's a good brand. You can't mistake the swoosh for any other logo.
Wow. You
can't mistake the Netflix logo for any other logo. No matter how hard Verizon tries to bite off their brand, you can't do it.
Bimma, you're going to look the same in 2025 as you look in 2030, bro. You have the same hair, the same fit.
Until I mess with everybody and do a brand refresh.
Right. Switch it up. Oh, bro, you gonna fuck them up with that one. Hey, whenever that first 55-second video drops, bro, and you're in purple and green, or I don't know what you
What you doing today, dog?
Hey, something's wrong with Bimma.
Hey, man,
I think you're make sure you're good in that business.
Bro, real talk.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to
real
say
talk,
that, man. Okay, second lesson.
Relationships. When we started the first podcast in 2019, we started Claiming Stories. You know, we also did have an intention of like, one day we'd love to be able to do this full time. Mm-hmm. And the ways that folks have gone about this are advertising, people sell merch, they do all these different things. But the world that I come from, I knew brand partnerships, I knew collabs. That's what I know. And that's the thing that I really enjoy putting together. And in order to get brand collaborations to work, yes, have to have a concept that works. Yes, have to have an audience. Yes, you have to have a proposition that the brand is interested in and aligns with them. And you got to know the people that cut the checks. And there's so many like times where I remember when I created my first thing in Louisiana, the running community, it's called Claim Your Journey. And today everybody's like, run crews are the new streetwear. I don't know what that means. I will never know what that means. And it's probably partly because I am a runner and I also have worked in streetwear and I don't understand the statement. But this was a time when folks were like, well, the way people were talking about running crews then is what people are talking about now. You see these run crews pop up and all of those different things. Mm-hmm. And I always said, I was like, man, if I was in New York or if I was in LA, I was like, this thing would be crazy, because I was seeing stuff like the November Project in Boston and people getting book deals and they getting funded for such and such. And so I probably felt like when I got here, I was like, I got to prove that there. Like to myself. And we were negotiating our first big deal that would have set us up to really go full time. And like I was working at Swoosh and COVID had just hit. And so there was a unique opportunity because different brands needed content stuff. And then also at the time, as you find out that they treated Black and brown lives like trends, that they needed content related to that. And so we're negotiating this deal for like 4 months, 6-figure deal. It would have been the biggest deal I've done outside of my professional career. So as an independent, which was meaningful to me. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I was happy to negotiate and do $1 million business as a professional, but it means something to do it under your own name. We get ready to look at the contract, sign contracts. They send us an email and they're like, we can't move forward with the deal, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like sunk. Cause I'm like, I finally like what I'm passionate about meets from a monetary side. Right, yeah. So at the same time, this was June 2020, the last episode of season 1 of Claimless Stories comes out. Okay. And the interview is with this guy named Nuo Gote. He's a really good friend of mine. And he used to work at Converse. And Nuo is from Liberia. His family grew up there. He's a marketer. He's worked in different places. And he does this interview. And this is what's great about interviews, right? It opens your network up, right? It just brings listeners into your world from a guest standpoint that may not have been there from the initial guest. It brings in all of these listeners from a professional side from Converse. One of the listeners at the time was the CMO from Converse. And Nuo hits me after the episode drops. He's like, man, you won't believe how many people have been hitting me up about my story and just like my career journey. And he's like, I've been meaning to put you in touch with one of my mentors. And I was like, who? He's like, CMO from Converse. I said, why you didn't put me in touch 6 months ago? Not the right question. When it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. No doubt. Dog, I get on this call with the CMO of Converse at the time. He's not there anymore. And he goes, hey, what are you trying to do with this? And I start giving him my pitch. Stops me halfway in my pitch. He said, here's what we want to do. We want to sponsor season 2, whole thing. And we want to sign you as talent to work with us in a hosting capacity for some of our other projects that we're doing. I said, huh? He said, yeah, that's what we want to do. He's like, would you be interested in that? I said, absolutely. So I'm thinking like, all right, maybe it'll happen. Maybe we'll hear something a couple months from now. Yeah. He got this deal done in 4 weeks. Wow. In 4 weeks.
And the other deal had just
fallen through.
Wow.
In 4 weeks. Dog. So deal gets done. And by July, I had put in my notice to Swoosh. Wow. I was out. And like that was the transition. But relationships. Without the introduction, without the proximity, and also without the resume, because that was the working resume. I always tell people that I was like, one interview could be the working resume if it's at the level that it needs to be, right? But that, bro, without season one, without the relationship, we don't get the Tyler interview.
And the timing, right?
The timing.
Because that was your last interview of the season, but you already had all of this content from the season for them to refer to.
Yes.
Had he been the first one, and there was no season to go look at.
Experience.
Yeah. But bro, for that to happen, bro, the timing was perfect.
The timing, bro. And so that was like, okay, bet. The third lesson, always be selling. What I realized, one of the lessons that I learned was from the selling lesson that I learned was from watching Uncut Gems.
Okay.
And if you remember about Uncut Gems, aside from it being exhaustingly uncomfortable, the entire movie, was Adam Sandler in that movie knew how to sell and raise the value of something from turn to turn. So if he said to you, this is 20K and you agreed, bet. Next person, this is 300K. Next person, this is 400K. He wasn't waiting to put it into the market. He was like, once I got this, that's the proof point. The proof point is that somebody else values it at this amount. And what I see with a lot of creatives is like, we be waiting for like, oh, when I put out this whole season, then I can charge X. When you put out something that someone values, then you can charge X. There's no imaginary timeline. It is it value? Do people want it? Is there a lineup of folks that want it? That's how value increases. Demand increases it, right? You limit the supply, the demand goes up, the price goes up. So when we had the Converse deal and the Tyler situation, I knew it was time to sell. So immediately we go to work. We're shopping to Vistaprint. We're shopping to Saucony. We're shopping to Clark's, 47 brand. Like, we're trying to talk to Spotify at the time. Like, we are literally like, when you're hot, it's the time to go.
Yeah.
Right? And so that lesson is like, always be selling. But the other part of that lesson is like, if you're not hot, it's hard to sell.
Yeah.
It's just hard because they're like, where's the proof that people want this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you gotta be aware of like, what is the thing that people want from you? And then that's what you go sell.
So you're able to leverage. Converse has already invested in season 2. So then in prep of season 2, now you're thinking about who's going to sponsor and come on for season 3?
Season 3 and tertiary partnerships within season 2.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
So whether it's event stuff or whether it's product stuff, like how can we start to like get ourselves another level of revenue and also expand and grow the audience and serve the audience needs in different ways.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's when it comes to like, you gotta be able to act in the moment. You can't like, it's not gonna come to you.
Yeah.
Right. But if you got to think about it. If I'm an independent podcast and I got support from a brand like Converse, that's attractive to other brands.
Right.
Right. Cause they're like, why they trust you? Well, we could trust it. It just shortens the questions. You know what I mean? It goes from like them asking you about 18 things to them being like, oh, that was the guy that interviewed Tyler. Bet. Come on.
Yep.
That's what set up the Amazon deal.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of the reason, like when you see high school recruits, when they come out of high school, when they're in high school, you rarely see guys with one Division I offer. Because when you get that first one, there's going to be another one to follow on. Oh, we can't miss out.
You can't miss out.
University of Oregon, they see something. Oh, Oregon State.
Yes.
Come on, we're going to give them the offer too.
Yes, and when it's the right folks, they influence that, right? So a University of Oregon will influence the other ones, right? Because they see them as like, oh, they got a leading program. If they know, we must, you know. And that's the commerce thing, and that's what started to lead to some of these other things. And so you have to be aware of those things as a creative of like, okay, so how can I continue to put myself in position so that these opportunities come? Because when, like, the thing I always say too is like, remember when it's your slowest. And if you always know what your slowest felt like, you know how to then capitalize because you don't want it to be slow again. No, you do not. It is the hardest to build momentum when you're coming from zero, right? If you're rolling down a hill, much easier to get momentum.
Yeah. There's also a lesson in the ability to not just create an asset, it's important, but then understand how to leverage that asset.
Yeah.
I think about how the NFL, like the asset is the game, right? The game, but it's not just the live viewing of the game that you see with the NFL. You got Hard Knocks, the prep of the game, of the regular season.
Yes.
You got ESPN who's licensing the highlights.
Yes.
Right? The highlights might show up on our phone.
Yeah.
Like it's all built around the asset, which is the game that's being played, but then being able to leverage that for different streams of income.
What's the players around the game? What are the tenants around the game that then allow you to go build these other things? Like it's like, and again, like I also like, I think the other thing that I do is like, I try to learn from a lot of different things. Like I spent a lot of time learning about sales. You were talking about your brother, and like, I will learn about sales from different things, whether it's books or whether it's looking at how creatives and coaches sell online to movies. Like, I love to just understand, like, how are they selling at these prices? Another one is, what do the documents look like that they present that convince people to give this type of money? It is a specific way that it's communicated. And a lot of times, we as creatives, we're like, man, I got this idea. It's so good. And then they're like, why ain't nobody rocking with my idea? It's like, your idea is very transparent to you. You've sat with it the longest. You see it in your head. What is in your head, we don't see. You have to present it to us for us to get on the same page to know if, like, that's real. And the thing about that is, you got to know your target audience, and you got to know what is of importance to them. There's a quote that, and I'm gonna butcher the quote, but when you can show interest into my needs, only then will I show interest into your needs. And that is human psychology. If I don't know how you gonna help me, I damn sure ain't helping you. That is the essence of it. That is a client. That is a business. Your client has a need. Your content they ain't supporting you because you putting out content. It's not a charity. They're supporting you because it helps them solve something, right? And so every time when I figured out that nugget, a lot of things got simpler. A lot of things got way simpler. It wasn't around the thought of like, but you should support me because I'm passionate about it, or you should support me because I'm doing the right thing, or you should. Nah. B, what do you need? Okay, that's what you need? Okay, bet. So if we do it like this, and this is how this piece of content will help you. That's a completely different framing.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to think, we are in service. The biggest of the biggest are in service. Shannon Sharpe is in service. What he's doing is of service. And that's the reason why it's so good. He gets that. And when folks come sit down, they get that. They know what he's in service to do, whether it is to create a comfortable space for the guests to share their story, or whether it's we get more eyeballs, we gonna sell more of this yak. Right? And so when I say of service, like, it ain't always gotta be something very serious. Like, it could just be like, I'm trying to move more candles. So I need to position this in a way that's gonna move more candles. But you gotta know that. You gotta know the audience that wants that, and you gotta know what they want. And then you give them the best version of that, or the different version of that, right?
Keeping the end in mind.
Yeah.
When you think about the future of Bimma, and also when you think about the future of culture, can we converge on those two things?
Yeah. I'm excited. I'll tell you that. Like, this is a very exciting time for culture, and I'm happy with where I'm positioned in that trajectory. And we're at a space where we're seeing an audience get louder about appreciation for nuanced content, nuanced creativity again. We don't want the same type of movies anymore. We don't want to see the same type of content. We don't want to see the same type of clothing or sneakers or cars. We're asking for all these things to start to appreciate nuance again, right? It's kind of the way like Portland lives, is like, we appreciate the uniqueness of different businesses, right? We don't want to go every corner and have like a fast food chain. We want, I want to go over there and get some West Indian. I want to go over here and get some Asian. I want to slide over here and get some Greek. Like, we like all these different things. And so right now, I'm so excited about being able to grow as a collab marketing educator. Like, that's the way that I frame myself. And what that means is, like, everything that a coach and everything that a collegiate educator would do is what I'm going to do in the open market, right? There's a reason why I speak a certain way, especially the way I speak online, is because that's how we spoke when I came up in a sneaker shop. And I said, if I'm going to speak to the younger me, I can't talk to them like this buttoned up professor. I can't talk to them with this jargon that no one understands. I got to give it to them. I got to meet them where they are.
Right.
And I got to share it in a way that makes sense to them. So when people see me talking about sneakers, I have to remind them, like, a large part of my audience gets it. Some of them, it goes over their head. I'm like, I'm not ever really talking about sneakers. Today, I might be talking to you about brand design, and I might be using this to show you that. Or tomorrow, I might be talking to you about a brand activation, but I might just be using Travis Scott that day as the example, right? And so a lot of times, like, I get to educate without folks recognizing that I'm educating, you know? But, you know, one of the big things I'm excited about is next year the book comes. So book's coming next year.
Let's go.
And it's gonna be this guidebook around collaborations, and it'll be for creators, it'll be for brand builders, and it'll be for small business owners. And it'll be like the only book you need when it comes to that subject matter. So that's what I'm excited about.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm excited for the book.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, when it drops. So I will order it and it'll go up somewhere.
Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, you got to keep it in frame.
Next to Joe.
Next to Joe.
Man, that's exciting, bro. That's exciting. I'm like I said, you know, you've inspired a lot of folks, a lot of your audience, and how generous you are with the education.
Thank you.
That comes from experiences, but also comes from what you're seeing out in the world.
Yeah.
And in practice.
Yeah, in real time.
You're living it.
That's what I try to tell people is like, my favorite rappers rap what they live, right? I'm rapping what I live, man.
Yeah.
I'm doing it in real time, and I'm also sharing it in real time. And like, I'm like, I didn't get this off of ChatGPT. Like, I didn't Google this. Like, this is like, I just came out of a deal. I'm not telling you what the deal is, but I'm telling you the principles of what happened in it, you know? And so like, hopefully folks can get that and go get themselves a bag, feed their family, pour back into their community the way that you do every day, you know? Like, that's all I'm trying to do.
100%.
You know?
Well, you're looking at my uniform right here.
I love it.
I've been in the all black.
I love it.
With the vest every episode, man.
I know.
I've been tempted to go outside the framework, but nah, man. I'll change up the sock every now and again. That's where I go. That's my flexibility within the uniform, bro. And this is like, I see it as a reset. You know what I mean? Reset my closet with the neutrals, with a lot of black.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna come out the other side with a more expanded color
palette,
but it's gonna be narrow.
Today, this is foundation, and like we can evolve around that. I love that.
Like, you got your brown, I got my black.
Yeah, look, man.
I'm gonna build in my purple here soon. You know what I mean? Just wait for it.
We gonna get you some purple in there, dog.
It ain't gonna be purple. I tell you off camera, I don't want to spoil it for the audience. I tell you, man. I tell you. But I appreciate the inspiration that you provided. I appreciate what you're doing, man. Glad that you're doing it here in the city. Yeah. You know, and this has been a great conversation. Appreciate all the nuggets that you dropped for me. Yeah. I know, you know, Ty, RB, all of us, you know, creatives, like you're leading the way, and it's been it's great to learn from you, bro. Man. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, bro. Yeah. Appreciate it. I'll be back, man. You let me know.
No doubt. All right, bro.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Leave us a review. Drop a comment. What do you want to see? What do you want to hear? Who do you want to hear from? We would love to hear from you.